I can teach you how to bewitch the mind and ensnare the senses. I can tell you how to bottle fame, brew glory, and even put a stopper in death.
Welcome to Snape Chat, the voice of the Snapedom, the podcast where we discuss all things Snape, always. Join us as we dive into the world of the bravest man we ever knew, in art, fanfic, meta, and more. Obviously. This is Snapecentric with episode 52, Snirthday 2026. We're celebrating with fics from Dirty Muggle, Truliarose, CypressWand, starcrossedgirl, Asenora and Threadbear, whereby Truliarose, Dirty Muggle, Snape Snail Tape, SerenaEW, Faithless_3105, and Mango Tart Reads. I'm joined by Dirty Muggle, SerenaEW, and masao for the listening party. Enjoy the show. This is Snapecentric, and I'm here with masao.
Hi there.
SerenaEW.
Hi.
And our special guest, Dirty Muggle.
Hello.
And we're here to celebrate Snape's birthday.
Yay.
Yay.
He's 65 this year.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Good
Yeah.
for him. I'm so glad he survived to 65 and definitely
Yes.
didn't die.
66, isn't it? Because it's 2026
Oh,
by the time
yeah.
we record this.
Oh my
That's true.
gosh. Oh
That's right.
gosh. Oh, I gotta change the artwork. Oh no.
Oh, no.
It says 65 on it. Okay, well.
That's okay. I've already been writing 2026 for like a month now.
Oh, that's good to be ready for it.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Well, we were really fortunate this time around. We have two works that were read by the author.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Dirty Muggles is one. We'll get to that a little later. This first one is
I think they pronounce themselves Truliarose.
Truliarose.
True and true as in truth and liar as in lie. And then rose.
Truliarose.
I think that's what she said.
Okay. I thought it was like truly a rose.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, me too. And she actually tolerates it. So it's like,
Oh, okay.
okay, you're not too wrong, but also she said, I think she said she preferred True Liar Rose.
Okay.
Or that's how she imagined it to be. So it's like,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, I'm just bringing up, she has a nice piece of art to begin the story with. I think it kind of really sets the scene. There it is.
Oh, there we go.
There it is. Yay.
Oh.
Mm-mm.
This is Snape's new home in Greece.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right on the sea.
Yeah. Yeah, let me go ahead and get the audio started.
Sanctuary Forged in Silence by Truliarose. Summary. When a stray boy suddenly appears on his porch, the sanctuary Severus built for himself after the war begins to unravel. Invaded not only by the child, but by memories he thought he'd buried, in their duty he never wished to claim. Green-eyed, silent, and wounded by magic he cannot yet control, the boy leaves Severus no choice but to help him, and in doing so, forces him to confront the past he tried to forget. And somewhere between the silence and healing, Severus has to wonder, is the boy a ghost of what was, or a glimpse of what might still be? Or how Severus ended up being the go-to adult for a time-traveling past version of the Brat Potter. Chapter 1. A Strange Visitor. The sound of the waves splashing against the jagged shore was more than just a background noise to the crickets chirping. It was a melody of its own, a wild symphony of nature carried by the steady rhythm of the tide. Severus sat in his kitchen, nursing a strong cup of tea. Eyes closed, He let the sounds around him wash over the silence, his fingers slowly cradling through his beard. They surrounded him, subtle, present, transforming what might seem lonely into his own sacred paradise. He hummed along, his voice fading into the mystical backdrop, shaped not by intent, but by instinct alone. A chaotic melody of pure life, aimless, yet it felt like the purest image of life. His finger traced the rim of his cup, the only movement in the still house. Still, but not lifeless, just breathing its own tempo. Suddenly, a ripple, a shudder, the tranquillity disturbed. The hair on his arm stood on end. Severus stilled. The hum fell silent, the final note swallowed into the steady rise and fall of the waves below him. Something had shifted. He rose, the tea abandoned on the table, as he called his wand to his hand. Ever watchful, he acted on habits that were etched too deeply to fade. Without a sound, he stepped to the door. The sun poured its last light over the horizon, a fiery trail of orange dancing across the waves below. Beautiful, treacherous in its glare. Squinting, he relied on his other senses to guide him. A sniffle, a hiccup, then silence. Soundlessly, Severus cast a detection spell. The air shifted as magic shimmered, a ghostly ripple unfurling from his wand, brushing against a hidden presence. Sometimes he wished he could see it. His magic. It had to be beautiful. He imagined it full of life and color, glittery rainbows filling the space around him. Breathtaking, powerful, perfect. But as it was, Severus could not see magic. He could only feel it. The energy reaching out from where he had channeled it through his wand, giving it intent and purpose. To aid him, to bid to his every whim. Power he wielded with thought alone. Power to destroy, but also to build and restore. Power that kept him safe. The waves crashed against the unforgiving rocks, while his magic explored every nook and cranny. A breath, then two, then, under the hush of the fading light and the sea's soothing song, something stirred. Not loudly, barely more than a creak of a shifting pebble, but enough for Severus to know. Someone was there. Severus turned toward the sound. The hot breath of summer greeted him as he stepped from the merciful shade of his home. Heat radiated off the stones around him, his bare feet burning on the hot terrace. Who would visit him in this heat? An animal seeking shade and water? The bird bath on the balustrade was filled to the brim. The bowls on the ground were also still filled with milk and food for the few stray cats around. No, this could not be an animal. He had felt magic, after all. He looked around and paused, the wand in his hand lowered when he laid eyes on his visitor. To his left, nestled between two potted orange trees, sat a small boy. Unsure, his frame curled inwards, he was almost invisible in between the ochre-colored pots and the dappled patio stone. Green eyes met black, wide, wary, and shimmering with fear. Unshed tears clung to the child's lashes, catching the last rays of the sun like tiny diamonds, only adding to the almost otherworldly sight. How had a child found his way to his remote reprieve? It was several kilometers between his house and the next village, not a distance one walked just like that, especially not in the summer heat, especially not a boy near 4 years of age, not to speak of the heavy walls surrounding his home. No one, not a single soul, should be able to find him just like that. A phantom then? No, The detection spell still hummed softly in the air, confirming what Severus saw. A lost child, hiding not with stealth, but sheer desperation. Below them, the sea crashed against the unforgiving coast, loud and steady, a rhythm older than time itself, soothing, anchoring in this moment of confusion. And it gave Severus something to focus on, other than the sight of a strayed child on his patio, and the utter confusion in his reeling mind. What had fate thrown at him now? The crickets chirped, and in that lull, between wave and breath, a truth hung, waiting to be taken. "Where are you from?" Severus tried again. He was carrying a glass of water and some fruit which he had picked up inside. The child didn't move, hadn't moved at all since Severus found him. He just sat, curled between the orange trees, knees tucked in, arms wrapped tightly around himself, not in comfort, but protection. His green eyes followed Severus's every move. "What's your name?" Severus tried again, fishing for the bit of Greek he knew. The boy's expression didn't change. If anything, he looked even more lost. Not Greek then, or perhaps not willing. Either way, language was no bridge here. "Here." Severus bent down, offering the glass. The boy tensed, like a thread pulled taut. His shoulders hunched deeper, fingers clenching in his sleeves, but not a word came forth, not a sound. His gaze never wavered, fixed and fearful, as if tracking a predator. Severus recognized it instantly, the look born from too many slammed doors and too little empathy and care. It reminded him of the alley cats in Spinner's End, eyes too wide, bones too close to the skin, only waiting for a reason to run. "It's just water," he said quietly, his voice shaped more by salt and wind than by command. He took a sip, holding the green gaze. "See, it's safe. I drank it. You can too." He set the glass and fruit down, then rose slowly and backed off, leaving the food untouched and the questions unanswered. Patience. He would get his answers. He always did. Instead of pushing, Severus turned away, taking the few steps to the edge of the patio. He rested his hands on the low wall that functioned as a balustrade and looked out onto the sea. The waves moved as they always did, without regard or hesitation. To his right, olive trees swayed gently, casting flickering shadows over rock and sand. Quietly, he cast a translation spell. Whatever language the child spoke would be translated to English, and vice versa. Then he cast again, and a mirror image of the patio behind Severus's back shimmered into existence, a handy spell he had used countless of times in his days as a teacher. Time trickled past, Severus alternating between looking at the sea and into the mirror. A seagull cried in the distance. The boy glanced up, searching, though he couldn't see it from his place low on the ground. But the sound stirred something. Slowly, almost reluctantly, the boy reached for the glass. It looked too big in his small hands, but he drank, and something in Severus eased. How come this strange boy could move him so deeply? He should be angry, furious even upon being disturbed, but somehow he could not. The child, in his blinding innocence, made it near impossible to hate him. And despite what his former students might have to say, Severus was no monster. He watched through the mirror as the boy picked up the fruit and could not help the faint smile that tugged at his mouth when the boy bit into a grape. Wonder bloomed in that round face. Yes, this child moved him. It puzzled him. And he would find out where the boy had come from. He would find answers. He always did. And if it took him more grapes, so be it. They were easy to come by, as they were from his own vineyard, after all. Fun had vanished beyond the edge of the sea, leaving only its afterglow and the last fiery pink clouds in a quickly darkening sky. The first stars twinkled to life in the deepening blue, awakening as their giant siblings set for the night. Severus sat opposite the child, legs stretched out, his back resting against the balustrade. The stone behind him was still warm, pulsing gently with heat of the day, like a comforting hug, a stark contrast to the quickly cooling air around them. Up close now, even in the dimming light, he could see what he hadn't before. Pink hands, burned and agitated, adorned by bruises curling up slender arms like ink shadows. The way the child held himself, his knees drawn in tight, elbows pressing against the ribs as if shielding something more than bone. This wasn't just caution. This was pain. Severus's heart ached. Not all marks were fresh. Some bore the faded edges of healing. Others pulsed red with infection, skin shiny and raw. No innocent child should carry such injuries. Throwing caution to the wind, Severus pulled out his wand and cast a diagnostic charm. He could alleviate the child later. Right now, he needed answers. The list that appeared was sobering. Bruised ribs, a healing fracture, minor burns, and the low flicker of a fever beginning to rise. An unpleasant foreboding coiled in his stomach. What fate had this child endured to bring him here in this condition? And still, the boy was eating, slowly picking through the fruit, devouring the pieces one after another. Severus stood, not abruptly, just decisive, and stepped quietly back inside the house. He didn't fear the boy would flee, not anymore. A few minutes later he returned, arms full. A plate of bread, olives and cheese, cool water and 3 vials tucked into the curve of his palm. He diluted them swiftly, measuring drop by drop into a saucer, adjusting the strength to suit a child this small. Then he set them down near the child with quiet care. "This will help," he said softly. No persuasion, just facts, simple truth. The child didn't react at first, but then, slowly, he reached for the glass, now filled with potions. A sip, then a grimace. Severus chuckled. "I know they taste bad, but they help. This is medicine to make you feel better." The child nodded and drank the rest. Severus rewarded him with a plate of cheese, olives, and bread, which earned him a weary smile. He sat once more, closer this time, not looming, not threatening, just present in quiet companionship. The sea crashed and receded below. The air cooled. And up here, wrapped in a cocoon of warm stone and tentative trust, something fragile and new began to form. A bond, one that would accompany Severus for many years to come.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that this was read by Truliarose as well.
Yeah.
She really kind of brings all your senses into the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed.
I love that. Her writing has like poetry and rhythm and stuff to it. I didn't know how to describe it. It's so beautiful to read and to listen to. It's like, oh, swoon.
Yeah.
And really, really compelling.
Yeah. Just reading through is so evocative and it makes me want to visit Greece, you know?
Yeah, that too.
Uh-huh.
And also, I so love that Severus's reaction is not "who is this kid," but rather empathy, because like, you know,
Right.
I want.
It sounds like his life before this is solitary, but not necessarily lonely.
Yeah.
No, I love how she mentions how he feeds the stray cats and stuff around his property. It was a lovely detail.
Yeah.
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 Those subtle references to what came before, like Spinner's End, as you all said, the stray cats, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
so lovely, so
Yeah.
lovely.
I'll talk a little bit more about the fic itself. What happens is the boy comes and gets healed, and a few hours later, he disappears.
Uh-oh.
And then a couple of years later, he comes back.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Comes back injured, so he heals him every time. And eventually he figures out who he is. Basically, this is time travel because the time is set after the war. Snape has basically buggered off to Greece to be away from everything.
Right.
Then this child comes from an earlier time. So it's some sort of cool magic. It's not explained. Yeah. This is actually part of a series. It is complete, and the second part is complete. That one is told from Harry's point of view. It does eventually become Snarry.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah, this is just one of those ones that I really appreciate.
Absolutely.
Okay, our next one is a Snelly.
So many times, so I'm so excited to hear. I'm really looking forward to this, yes.
I really love this fic too. I love all the fics. It's just, there's so many flavors of Snape, and I just love that.
I mean, that's one of the best parts of this fandom, I think.
It is for sure. There's so many interpretations. I like writing him different ways as well.
Same. I've got like multiple headcanons depending on the like scenario.
All right, this is Severus Snape and the Art of War by CypressWand and read by Snapecentric.
Severus Snape and the Art of War by CypressWand. Read by Snapecentric. Summary. After his death, Severus makes the decision to return to the world of the living, starting in the summer of 1975. With his adult knowledge on the upcoming war hidden inside his 15-year-old body, he finds his way back to Lily and his new position in the wizarding world. Chapter 1. The Goldfish of Horace Slughorn. Look at me. The green eyes that had once belonged to Lily were staring intently into his own. Was it concern he saw in those eyes? Pity? Why the fuck does it even matter? The snake's venom was coursing through his veins, bathing his broken body in an invisible fire that reminded him of the Cruciatus curse, a curse he had often felt under the hands of the Dark Lord. The pain had been nothing compared to Lily's death. The pain meant nothing to him now. Memories had started to pour out of him as he felt the cold glass of a potion vial being pressed against his face. He could only hope that Potter's spawn was smart enough to understand the importance of the memories he was giving to him. Not that any of it mattered anymore. The boy was bound to die soon. It had been both a blessing and a curse to once again be the carrier of bad news. How oxymoronic that he had to do it once more in the final moments of his own death, as if death was his life's legacy spread out like some disgusting venereal disease. He closed his eyes. His mind was slipping out of consciousness. He was no longer aware of the 3 students who were kneeling beside him, trying in a feeble attempt to stop the wound on his neck from bleeding. The blood had already filled his lungs, stained his hands, and tainted his mind. How strange. He had expected complete darkness to surround him, but instead everything was bright. Was there an afterlife after all? If he could have groaned, he would have. The last thing he wished for was a continuation of his already miserable existence. His eyes had started to adjust to the light, and the first thing that appeared in front of his eyes was a fishbowl. He rolled his eyes and let out a sigh. Not his mother, nor some divine being, or even bloody Dumbledore himself had appeared to guide his way. Instead, he was stranded and abandoned in some unknown ethereal place with a fucking fish. Goldfish? His skepticism had turned into curiosity. He placed his hands around the bowl. The bowl seemed much larger in his hands than he initially thought it was. Or were his hands somehow smaller than before? Pip, he whispered to the little fish. Is that you? "I see you found Francis," said a jolly, familiar voice behind him. Severus nearly dropped the bowl, catching it just before it shattered onto the floor. Before him stood a much taller and much younger-looking version of Professor Slughorn? His voice sounded small to him, childlike even. "Ah, yes, my dear boy, it is good to see you again." Slughorn patted him reassuringly on the shoulder. He looked up at the professor, clutching tightly onto the bowl, not wanting to risk another near accident. "Sir, where are we?" Once again, his voice sounded small. For a second he wondered why, but he couldn't be bothered with such questions for now. Slughorn smiled at him. "I think it would be easier if you told me where we are." The light started to fade out before them, and he found himself standing by a riverbank. Slughorn looked around as if he wasn't quite sure what he was looking at. "Where did you say we were, Severus?" "Cokeworth's riverbank along the Thames. I grew up here." Slughorn's face fell at the sight of it. The bank was in the same poor, disheveled state as Severus remembered it, dirty and slick from all the waste that the factory produced on the opposite side of the river. "Of all places, why this one?" Slughorn asked. "I used to come down here all the time with—" He bit his lip and looked down at the goldfish in his arms. Pip had been a Christmas gift from Lily, the very first Christmas gift he had ever been given. She had told him it was to keep him company on the days that she was not around. Having Pip around had been a great comfort. "Would you like to sit down?" Slughorn gave him a compassionate look, as if he understood what was going through his mind. They sat underneath an oak tree, the same one where he and Lily had so often sat together, hiding from the hot summer sun. He placed the fishbowl in front of him on the grass and looked at it for a while, trying to let everything sink in. "I thought it was Francis for a moment," Slughorn said eventually, "but now I see that it isn't." "Who was Francis?" Severus asked. "A fish Lily had given me after she found out my wife had passed away." Slughorn looked longingly at Severus's fish. "I found a bowl on my desk one morning with just a little bit of water in it. On the surface was a petal of a lily. As I watched, it sank, and before it reached the bottom, it transformed into a wee little fish." Tears had sprung in his eyes as he recalled the memory. "Did this little one die, too, on the night that Lily—" Severus shook his head. A lump had started to form in his throat. "Pip died the summer after my owls, at the hands of my father." He couldn't quite believe himself. After years of dealing with death and despair, he was starting to feel sentimental over a stupid goldfish. "Did you die too in the battle?" Severus said to turn the conversation. Slughorn nodded. "I don't mind so much, though. I've lived a long and happy life, unlike you." "I wasn't asking for your pity," Severus sneered. Slughorn ignored his remark. "You and Lily. I know that as a teacher you are not supposed to have favorites, but the two of you made quite an amusing couple." Severus rolled his eyes. "Lily and I were never a couple." "You two sure acted like one," Slughorn chuckled. "Just like my wife and I used to be. She was a Gryffindor girl, too, just like Lily was." Slughorn closed his eyes as if he was trying to recollect himself. "It broke my heart to see how your friendship with her had shattered. I would have liked to see you marry her. You seemed right for each other." "Little late for that, isn't it?" Severus asked sarcastically. "Not quite, Severus. Not quite." "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" "It means you have a choice, Severus. You can either move on like I did, or go back and set things right." "I don't quite understand." "It means, Severus, if you don't mind me quoting William Blake here, that in the universe there are things that are known and things that are unknown, and in between there are doors." Severus contemplated for a moment, trying to process the information he had been given. "Why would I want to go back to that bloody war? Haven't I done enough already?" "Who said anything about going back to the war, Severus?" "My whole life revolved around this war." Severus's voice rose. "What difference would it make?" "As I said," Slughorn responded calmly, "it is not the war you would go back to. My mother is gone, Lily is gone, hell, even most of my Death Eater friends are gone. I have nothing left to go back to." "You have everything to go back to, Severus, because you have a choice." Severus frowned. I still don't quite understand. Follow me. Slughorn got up and walked to the edge of the river while Severus followed suit. Look at yourself. Slughorn pointed at the calmly flowing river. As far as the troubled water allowed, Severus's reflection showed the face of a young man rather than the worn and sallow face he had grown accustomed to. It was also the first time he noticed that he was wearing an oversized brown shirt along with shabby-looking jeans, things he hadn't worn since he was a teenager. He looked up at Slughorn. What will happen to me if I go back? Slughorn shook his head. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. This is your choice and your choice alone to make. I need some time to think. Slughorn nodded in understanding and sat back down by the oak tree, looking contently at the little goldfish. He had the chance to go back, to see Lily again, to see his mother again. He could even change the course of history. A leaf had fallen off the oak tree and landed gently in front of him on the surface of the river, leaving small ripples as it drifted off down the stream. All it took was to change a single deed, a single word, a single thought. He turned around to look at Slughorn, who was now cradling the bowl in his hands. How do I go back, Professor? Severus asked. Slughorn looked pleased. If you wish to come with me, all you need to do is step through the clearing, but if you wish to go back, you will have to step into the river. Severus groaned. I can't swim. You're not supposed to. His gaze was locked onto that of his old professor. Are you telling me that I need to drown? Dying is as easy as falling asleep. Living, however, Slughorn raised his shoulders, not so much. Fucking fantastic, Severus scorned. Here I am, barely dead for an hour, only to die another painful death in order to live again. Slughorn laughed. It does seem a bit oxymoronic, doesn't it? Severus stood up, drew a deep breath, and exhaled. Take good care of Pip for me, will you? Are you sure you don't want to take her with you? Fish don't drown now, do they? Slughorn laughed and looked elated. Of course, my dear boy. I think my wife would love her very much. Without another glance back, Severus waded into the cold water. He was already waist-deep when Slughorn called out to him, Severus! He looked around to see the man standing at the edge of the clearing, the fishbowl tucked underneath one arm. If you see me, the other me, please do go to one of his parties, will you? He does like having you around. Severus nodded. I promise. With a small wave, Slughorn disappeared through the clearing. Severus marched in all the way until his feet no longer touched the bottom of the river and allowed himself to let the stream carry him away. He exhaled, squeezing as much air from his lungs as he possibly could, and sank under the surface of the water. A natural response of panic arose inside of him, but he suppressed it by letting memories of the past flow through him as he slowly sank to the bottom. The squeezing sensation in his chest felt painful as his lungs hungered for oxygen, but the pain released as soon as he slipped out of consciousness. Death through drowning wasn't so bad after all.
Especially compared to dying by snake.
Also, I'm not sure whether that was intentional, but I love the Styx reference, the Styx River.
Oh.
I know, it just feels like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, how smart.
I love these, like, Snape gets to go back in time and keep his memory setups. These, like, fix like that. I like that theme a lot.
Yeah, this one's different from the one that we had on the last show.
Yeah, it has a very different feeling, I think.
Yeah, that was Let's Go Around Again by Jackson.
Yeah. Well, there's so many things you can do with this, kind of prompt for a story.
Yes. Yeah. And this one is a pretty big one. Let's see.
I think it said it was over 500K, I saw.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is like a long novel.
It's a very, very that's like 5 novels.
Yeah. I'll say though, they're very fast paced.
Yeah.
And 250 chapters, but they're short, so
right.
it reads really easily. And the pacing is just great.
The tone of it. And I don't know, I found his cynicism really funny.
Yeah.
I was laughing.
Yeah.
So I was listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love when people write Snape as being so negative or sarcastic.
Yeah, just his thoughts of being like stuck in the afterlife with the goldfish. I
Yeah.
loved.
Yeah, also, it
Yeah.
sounded very random at first, and then the name came up. It's like, oh my god. Ah!
Yeah. In the next chapter, he looks in the mirror and realizes he's like 15 years old. And he's like, oh, I got the arse end of a deal again. Having to go through the,
The arson of the puberty deal?
yes.
Poor Severus.
Yeah. But yeah, he reunites with Lily. And actually, one of the things that is said about this is there's no character bashing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because, the Marauders are initially at cross purposes, but they slowly come around.
Fair.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Snape actually, instead of being all by himself or with Lily, he develops a whole crew of people
Nice.
that he relies on to bring about the downfall of the Dark Lords. So.
I mean, I think that's one of the interesting things about this kind of a trope, because hindsight really allows him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's two ways to go with it. Like last time, it's kind of like he's kind of doomed in a way, but like with this one, it's like there's so much opportunity. So there's so many different ways for the story to kind of grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Another great recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one is a classic Snarry.
Oh my god.
Yay.
Yeah. And
Now you'll all have to listen to me, I guess.
oh, you do such a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you. It's like,
You do. And thank StarCrossedgirl for her blanket permission.
Blanket permissions are an amazing thing.
Yes. This is The Boy Who Died a Lot by StarCrossedgirl, read by SerenaEW.
The Boy Who Died a Lot. Written by starcrossedgirl and read by SerenaEW. Summary. Harry's always been known as the boy who lived. Only Severus knows that this is a lie. Or a portrait of Severus Snape in 7 acts. The first time Harry Potter died, he was 11 years old. In hindsight, Severus considered it nothing short of a miracle that the blasted boy had lasted this long in the first place. Between ill-advised flight stunts without a single lesson in actual flying, trolls in a dungeon, and traipsing around the castle at night whenever he damn well pleased, no proof does not mean it didn't happen, Potter should surely have shuffled off this mortal coil much, much sooner. The Jinx broom didn't count because, for once, Potter's fabled luck had not been responsible. No, Severus alone had saved his hide in that instance, paying for the privilege by nearly going up in flames for all the good that did. Because here they were, less than 6 months later, Potter lying stone-cold dead on an infirmary bed, whilst Severus wondered why he'd bothered at all. What a waste of a fine set of robes. They'd been expensive, too. It's all my fault, sobbed the overgrown oaf, who was ultimately to blame for this mess. Shouldn't have made him switch teams. Should have never sent him up with Malfoy. Shouldn't have. The rest of Hagrid's words got lost in a fresh flood of tears as he threw his arms around Potter's motionless torso, shuddering so hard it rocked both the bed and the chair he sat on. The movement dislodged the sheet Pomfrey had drawn over the body, exposing the garish slash across Potter's throat, where blood and life had drained out of him. "No, no," Minerva said. tucking the sheet discreetly back into place. "It's no use blaming yourself. You weren't to know that this horrible tragedy," her voice wobbled just slightly on the last word, "would come to pass. If any of us could truly predict the future, well, I most certainly would never have assigned this attention. I'm as much to blame as you are." "Oh, for the love of..." Severus crossed his arms, fingers drumming against his bicep, and glanced heavenwards in supreme irritation. By the time he looked back down, Minerva was glaring at him. "Would it kill you to at least pretend to have some modicum of respect for the preposterous pity party you're so intent on throwing? Yes. For the fact that an 11-year-old boy lies not 2 feet from you dead. For the fact that 3 more children, one of whom belongs to your house, might I add, are sitting just beyond that door." She thrust a finger towards the room that Pomfrey had let Draco, Longbottom, and Granger into upon arrival, "probably traumatized for life." Hagrid sobbed harder. "Or very touching, I'm sure," Severus said. "Except that, as usual, you're entirely missing the point." For a moment, Minerva seemed liable to leap over the bed in between them to ensure Severus's throat soon resembled Potter's. She might have done, too, if not for Dumbledore's hand coming to rest on her shoulder. "And that would be?" he asked, as though he hadn't spent the past 10 minutes quietly analysing the information Hagrid had provided before dissolving into a blubbering mess. "I am certain you have already arrived at much the same conclusion as myself, Headmaster. Be that as it may, I would still like to hear your interpretation of events." Severus sighed. "1. Hagrid confirms that something is indeed killing the unicorn, some creature unlike any he's seen before. 2. Said creature is drinking the unicorn's blood. 3. Said creature has killed Harry Potter by cutting his throat with a knife, a most interesting choice of murder weapon for a supernatural creature of any kind. Conclusion, said creature is not a creature at all. It is the Dark Lord returned. He was weakened enough to have to rely on unicorn blood to sustain his life, but now that he has killed the one person who almost saw him vanquished, we are dealing with a completely different equation altogether. He has Potter's blood. It is only a matter of time until he finds a spell to match if he hasn't already. How well the stone is protected is irrelevant now because he no longer needs it. In short, we're, all of us, doomed." For several seconds, silence reigned. Minerva's features had shifted from outrage to profound concern during Severus's speech. Even Hagrid was no longer crying, instead sitting straight up in his chair once again. "You know who," he said, sounding equal parts horrified and disbelieving. "But it can't be. Might never believed all that crap about him being gone for good, but at Hogwarts. But Professor Dumbledore here, surely he wouldn't dare." "Perhaps my presence is not as much of a deterrent as all of us had hoped," Dumbledore said with a nod to Severus. "You are certain?" "Yes." "Very well. If you could come with me—" "No, not you, Minerva, just Severus." "But if he has truly returned—" "Then I will trust that I can call on you when the time is right," Dumbledore said with a light squeeze to her shoulder and a smile which, for once, did not reach his eyes. "But for now you can best serve us all by assisting Pomfrey in looking after the children." The twist to Minerva's mouth made it clear that she was far from pleased. Under any other circumstance, Severus would have taken the opportunity to smirk at her, but as it was, he simply followed Dumbledore out of the infirmary. Do not look so glum, Dumbledore said, as they were ascending the stairs. I do have a plan. A plan, Severus said. Are we conveniently forgetting something of major importance? Something, I don't know, orb-shaped and glowing, slumbering safe and sound on a shelf at the Ministry. Something that begins with the capital letter P. Really now, Severus, there is hardly a need for sarcasm. Besides, Dumbledore's eyes narrowed a fraction, I fail to see why you believe that the prophecy would be relevant. Come of it. If it begins by stating that the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, and you made it perfectly plain to me how crucial protecting Potter is, then it hardly takes a genius to deduce that it contains further information marking Potter as the only one capable of fully defeating him. So yes, there is a need for sarcasm. We have lost our ultimate weapon. As I've already stated, we are all doomed. Brighton Rock, Dumbledore said, and the gargoyle slid aside to reveal the staircase to his office. Please don't forget that the weapon you're talking about used to be a young boy with hopes and dreams like any other. A young boy whose friends mourn his passing even as we are speaking. And whose fault is that? Who gave a bumbling idiot with less common sense than a flubberworm the authority to supervise detentions by taking said young boy to the forest when it is expressly forbidden to students? For that matter, who encouraged Potter's constant rule-breaking and gallivanting about the castle at all hours, granting him special dispensation to join a preposterously dangerous sport, etc., etc.? How many times in the past year did I come to you demanding that Potter be kept in line and get brushed off? I don't see your point, Severus, Dumbledore said with a distracted air, rummaging around in a corner. Ah, there it is. My point is that any normal child his age would have seen something sucking the life out of a unicorn and run screaming, much as Draco Malfoy did. Potter, however, was almost guaranteed to run straight towards it, as I warned you repeatedly, except that you failed to listen. Dumbledore said. Perhaps. Do take a seat, would you? Severus slumped down into the chair by Dumbledore's desk, burying his face against his hand. And please do not sulk. I am not sulking. I am despairing. Then don't despair. Hold out your hand. Severus complied, albeit with a great deal of reluctance. A soft clink echoed through the room as Dumbledore dropped something metallic into his palm, before sinking back into his own chair, smiling. What do you say now? Severus stared at the object, all the wind knocked out of him. A time-turner, Dumbledore said. Highly illegal, of course, and somewhat dated, but it will have to suffice. You want me to go back and prevent the Dark Lord from killing Potter? Yes. Well, that should be easy enough. All I need to do is stop this blasted detention from ever occurring. No, under no circumstances can I allow you to do that. There is no telling what would happen if we interfered too early in the time stream. It's such a delicate balance, you see. Besides, I believe it is crucial that Harry should encounter Voldemort tonight, just not with this consequence. On the grounds that? Call it gut feeling, Dumbledore said, with one of those damned twinkles in his eye. Severus's teeth clenched. Very well. I shall swoop in, then, at just the right moment, and leap to Potter's rescue like a white knight in shining armour. No, you cannot do that either. Oh, for the love... Where were you tonight when I called you to the infirmary? Supervising detention, Severus said with a sigh. Yes, I do take your point. it would be impossible to keep this a covert operation if people can vouch for seeing me in 2 places at once. Although that does seem rather inconsequential, given the stakes. And if it comes to that, that's how it will be. But there's no reason not to aim high. It really will be much better if Harry doesn't see you. As a matter of fact, it would be ideal if his rescue didn't seem suspicious at all, but natural, shall we say. With all due respect, Headmaster, if you've got such clear specifications for this mission, why don't you bloody well go and do it yourself? Oh, Dumbledore said, reaching for a quill and parchment and beginning to write. I've always been excellent at formulating plans, but I trust that your creative problem-solving skills will make you a much better executor on this occasion. Severus snorted. There was no doubt in his mind that Dumbledore himself was equally, if not far better, suited to the task at hand. No, the true reason had to be something else, something he was deliberately obfuscating. Narrowing his eyes, he watched the man write for several long moments, before deciding to set aside speculation until later. Right now, practical concerns seemed far more pressing than uncovering Dumbledore's ulterior motives. Anything else? Dumbledore held up a finger, scribbling several more lines onto the parchment, then signed it and rolled it up. Yes, as I mentioned, this model is somewhat dated, and as such allows for some compensation of temporal paradoxes, but only up to a point, which complicates matters a little. Naturally. The basic paradox is this. If you are successful, this timeline will cease to exist, or, should I say, will never have existed at all. Consequently, I too will cease to exist. Quite correct, Dumbledore said, which in turn means you could never have gone back to fix the situation. Consequently, the new timeline you'll have created would collapse. Harry would die as before, and we'd end up right back here. I'd send you back, and the process would repeat in perpetuity. We would end up stuck in a sort of closed temporal loop. Sounds marvelous. Now, a more powerful time turner can accommodate such a paradox indefinitely. There would simply end up being 2 of you in the new timeline. However, this one can only sustain the paradox for a limited period. So you will need to inform yourself, past you, of how you resolve the situation, so past you can go back as you did and save Harry. Then, wait, Severus said. I was following you up to this point, but now you've lost me. If he goes back in time, won't I already be there fixing matters? No, because of the paradox. That part of the time stream will have already begun to degrade. In a sense, if he goes back, he will then turn into you. The time turner will facilitate that process, and you will be free to go forward in the new timeline you'll have created. Severus frowned, pausing and repassing that sentence before giving it up as hopeless. I have already got a headache. Try not to overthink it too much, Dumbledore said. It's simply how these things work. Regardless, I've just written myself a letter which will explain the situation so that past me can give past you the time turner at the right moment. Severus nodded absent-mindedly. And if he and I essentially merge, what will happen to my memories? Based on my research, you should retain the memory of both the original and the new timelines. Oh, fantastic. More headaches. And actually, on second thought, herein lay the answer to his earlier question about Dumbledore's motivations for sending Severus, did it not? Creative problem-solving. More like Dumbledore's reluctance to recall the vivid image of Potter's ghostly pale face and gaping throat. the heavy stink of blood soaking through his robes. Severus closed his eyes briefly, swallowing, staring death in the face when it was right in front of you, continuing to focus on what needed doing whilst standing over someone's dead body. That was the easy part. The memories, though, the way they lingered. "You will be fine," Dumbledore said, misinterpreting his expression. "Well, provided you don't go and kill yourself, that is." Severus shot him a look that communicated just how very far from funny he considered that comment, then snatched up the parchment and left the office. "Good luck, my boy!" Dumbledore called after him. Severus did not need luck. He needed a plan. Tracking down whom he sought once a time turner had spun him into the past turned out the easiest part. There was something to be said for having friends in unusual places. "Mars is bright tonight," said the centaur when Severus stepped into the clearing. "Good evening to you too." Firenze turned toward him, one hoof pawing the ground. "You swim outside your stream, Severus Snape?" Perhaps this had not been such an inspired idea. "Do I?" "You reek off tomorrow. By all rights, I ought not to be speaking with you." "And yet, you are still here," Severus pointed out. "If you give me 5 minutes, I can explain what I—" "You seek to undo what is done. It is unwise." "Some would beg to differ. Tonight—" "It is unwise," Firenze repeated. "What has come to pass shall come to pass. It is written. Return to whence you came, and abandon this foolishness. I cannot do that. Besides, was it not written also that Emily Smith should have died less than a year ago when I could not locate the star-blooming moss for the potion that you required? Was it not you who led me to it?" Firenze's blue eyes slid away from Severus's face. "That was far different," he said, before fixing his gaze on Severus anew. "Whatever you seek to undo now has already transpired. It has not. You will only delay the inevitable. Mark my words. The streams of time have a way of rerouting themselves. Then I will delay it. 3 hours from now. I have no wish to know. 3 hours from now." Severus continued, raising his voice as Firenze shook his head and turned, setting off towards the trees at a trot. 3 hours from now, the Dark Lord will kill Harry Potter and rise again. Is that a future you wish to protect? Firenze ground to a halt. He looked skywards, his hair shimmering white in the moonlight. "Mars is unusually bright tonight," he said. "It is written." But he sounded troubled. "You don't believe that," Severus said, striding across the clearing to face him. "You never have, and you never will. You are not like the rest of your kind, or you would never have assisted me last year. Mark my words now. I will keep this from happening, with or without your help. You may find that you do not enjoy the consequences. Time shall oppose you, be in no doubt about that. It abhors any imbalance and shall seek to redress it. At any cost," Severus said. A ghost of a smile danced over Firenze's features when he next met Severus's eyes. "You are persistent. Can you blame me? You are old enough to remember what life was like when he first ruled. If Potter dies, slaying unicorns will be the least of your worries. There won't be a part of this forest, of this whole island, that will remain unaffected by open war. And without Potter, we stand no chance at all. My people will die, your people will die, all of us will die. We'll have a carnage on our hands. Is that what you want?" Firenze pawed at the ground nervously. The future is not set in stone, Severus said. Not yet, at any rate. Now, I came to you for assistance, because I find myself in the unenviable position of being in two places at once. If I save Potter and he sees me, word will soon spread, and the truth of my actions will be revealed. There is no telling what chain of events I might set in motion, but one reason why this is unwise. However, if you intervene in my stead, Severus continued unfazed, then no one need ever know. And if I refuse, then I will do what I must and accept the consequences. I do not believe you grasp how far they may reach, nor that you will until you have become hopelessly ensnared and entangled and there is no way back. Time can be as subtle as it is persistent. I don't care, Severus said. Firenze sighed. You ask much. Much is at stake. Most of my kind would already have refused you. Centaurs don't interfere in that which is human, nor in that which is writ large in the sky. But you are not like most of your people. No, Firenze allowed, after a long moment's silence. I have often been what they would call foolish. Others might call it insightful. Firenze straightened his shoulders, stamping a hoof on the ground harshly. Do not attempt to flatter me, Severus Snape, he said, and there was no humour in his features. I will do as you say, but not for your sake. I will do it because the darkness which roams this forest cannot be allowed to roam this whole land. Now take me to where the boy will be tonight, and then never seek me again. Losing friends in unusual places, Severus reflected as he set off for the location he'd extracted from Hagrid before departing, seemed like a very small price to pay. He did not rest easy until it was done, watching Firenze gallop to Potter's rescue from a safe distance, his one hand twitching all the while. Even then, his sigh of relief was a temporary one. After all, he still had a paradox to attend to. He went straight up to the headmaster's office and handed over the letter without so much as a byword. How remarkable, Dumbledore said, once he had finished it. How truly extraordinary. Never in my life have I— Yes, said Severus, still feeling irritated from having to steal about the castle like a thief in the night. He hadn't done that since he was 17. Could we get to the point? Naturally. I take it your presence here means you've been successful. I don't know, Severus said, spreading his arms wide. Are there any dead brats lying about that I've happened to miss? No? In that case, yes, I think we can safely say I've been successful. Dumbledore sent him a stern glance over the rim of his spectacles. Of course, Severus continued, I may disappear at any given moment, thus spiralling us into a never-ending time loop of eternal damnation. Well then, Dumbledore said jovially, we'd best ensure that doesn't happen. Now, where'd I put it? That drawer. Whilst Dumbledore was busy finding the time-turner, Severus checked the clock on his desk. I won't be in my quarters yet, still supervising detention. For how long? 10 minutes, 15 at most. In that case, it will be best if we flew straight through to your quarters and wait for you there, Dumbledore said. No sense in confusing the house elves by asking them to summon someone who is in 2 places at once. No sense in— You are remarkably blasé about the impending destruction of time as we know it, don't you think? Calm yourself, Severus. It's true that the time-turner does have limitations, but it ought to sustain you for several hours at least. A couple of days, even, I'd wager. It will most certainly uphold the paradox until the moment you originally departed. Was it that early? Severus ground his teeth so hard they ached. No, he admitted. I believe it was about 4 in the morning. There you go, Dumbledore said, beaming. Everything will be fine. Don't you worry. Do you still have the pensieve which I gave you? He made it sound as though it had been a gift, and not a tool he had furnished Severus with after his return to Hogwarts. A tool for the express purpose of getting reliable information out of a spy, for all those times when fear had made his recall a tad hazy. Of course he had kept it. It did not take long to set up the pensieve inside his rooms, and extract the memory of his conversation with Firenze. Exactly 10 minutes later, the door to Severus's quarters flew open, and Severus promptly found himself at the business end of his own wand. What is the meaning of this? Snapped Snape, and Severus's irritation vanished into thin air, replaced by the joyousness of finally seeing someone jump to a potentially dangerous situation with alacrity. What does it take? He asked himself, already knowing the answer. It looks like all my precaution to keep my hair from falling into the wrong hands were in vain, because apologist imposters clearly invaded my quarters. Snape's eyes narrowed. An imposter who has the nerve to sit in my favourite chair. Oh no, your precautions worked perfectly, Severus said. You see, I am no imposter. I am... He leaned forward slightly, steepling his fingers before him and dropping his voice on the next word. The ghost of Christmas future. Snape blinked, looking quickly over at Dumbledore, then back at Severus. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Severus couldn't help it. He smirked. Honestly, Severus, said Dumbledore. No, not you, the one sitting down. Please refrain from goading yourself. And, Severus, dearie me, this is all rather confusing, isn't it? I am calling him Snape, Severus said. I find that it helps. Will someone just tell me, Snape burst out, jabbing his wand towards Severus's face, what the blazes is going on? Of course, my boy, of course. Please, take a seat. And please, do put away your wand. No matter how trying you find, Severus, threatening him is hardly the answer. Snape sank into the proffered chair, much as Severus had done in Dumbledore's office not 24 hours earlier, or half an hour from now, depending on how one looked at it. This is preposterous, Snape said, when they had finished relaying the tale and what still needed to be done. The whole damn thing from start to finish. Sheer madness. You're telling me, Severus said. Snape glared at him. Severus might have started, if he hadn't become intimately acquainted with that expression through years of looking in the mirror. I am not talking to you, Snape said. Your overly dramatic introduction to this whole farce was completely unnecessary. And yet, you would have done exactly the same. I believe we have wandered a little off topic, Dumbledore cut in. Quite, said Snape, rising from his chair and walking over to the pensieve. He sighed. I don't suppose I get much say in the matter. Severus laughed, though there was no humour in it. Do we ever? The look Snape sent him then was far less familiar, a strange reflection of empathy built on shared understanding. It continued to rattle him, even when Snape turned to thrust his face into the pensieve. Half an hour later, and he was standing beside the headmaster, the sole Snape in Hogwarts, once more. Well, Dumbledore said, that went swimmingly, don't you think? The real question is, how will I know whether we've been successful? He'd no sooner uttered the words than a wave of dizziness came over him, forcing him to grip the back of a chair to keep from falling. "Steady there," Dumbledore said, grasping his arm until the lightheadedness passed. "It seems you have answered your own question." Yes. The twin memories left behind felt nothing short of bizarre. It was a challenge for Severus to keep them apart, lest they merge back into a strange sort of muddle. This would take some getting used to. "I shall take my leave then," Dumbledore said. "You should go and get some sleep. You'll need it after the days you have had." "Wait." Severus dug through his pockets, then held out the time turner, dangling it in front of Dumbledore by its chain. "You forgot to ask for this back." Dumbledore smiled. "I did not forget," he said, grasping the time turner only long enough to wrap Severus's hand around it, folding his fingers tightly over the cold metal. "You keep it for now, just in case." Severus stared at him in disbelief. "Mind you, I only want you to use it for the same reason I gave it to you in the first place," Dumbledore continued. "Time is far too fragile for us to play around with at our leisure." "Don't be preposterous," Severus said. "Potter won't die again. He can't. I won't let it happen." "Let us hope that you are right," Dumbledore said, already by the door. "Oh, and Severus." "Yes?" "If you do ever find that you need to use it, there's no need to inform me of the details. In fact, I would much rather you didn't, simply to avoid unnecessary complications, you understand. Good night." Finally alone in his quarters, Severus stared at the small hourglass in the palm of his hand, feeling distinctly unsettled. It didn't help that Firenze's voice was stuck on a loop in his head. The streams of time have a way of rerouting themselves. For the sake of his own sanity, Severus hoped he was sorely mistaken. The end, for now.
Very nice. A classic.
Oh, it is, yeah. And that was a wonderful reading, Serena.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely.
The banter was so enjoyable. Oh my god. Like, it was so enjoyable to read. Also, there absolutely is a need for sarcasm. Quote unquote.
And so much of it in this story, it just, it's funny. It just, I was chuckling along.
Mm. Although this feels like really unpleasant to say the least topic.
Mm-hmm. You were saying Dirty Muggle?
Oh, I was just saying, no, I was agreeing with you. All of Snape's comebacks were very amusing to me as well.
Yeah.
The other line about despairing. It's how particular he was. Yeah.
Yeah. So many good one-liners.
But also, you know, I love the ghosts of Christmas future.
Oh yeah, that made me laugh too.
I was actually thinking whether Severus had made out a code word with himself just for that case, because that is what it sounded like.
Oh yeah.
So how the heck could he have known? Wow.
I mean, in a world with time travel, you'd have to think that he maybe would have thought of that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but also, wow, I love this.
I also just like the idea of him taking the piss out of himself.
Yeah. You think he'd be able to recognize that no one but him would come up with things like that.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. This is 72,000 words. It's in 7 acts. We read the first act. It's all in one chapter, but another fine read. Have you read this before? Anybody?
I think I read it a really, really long time ago, like when it first came out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Long enough ago that it's brand new to me.
Fair enough.
I think it's the first Snarry I ever read.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I remember I was sitting in the airport just enjoying it.
That's cool. You know, that's fun to think about. I remember that I read one of my favorite fics while I was waiting at a train station. So
Uh-huh.
it's such a vibe, like, you know, kind of just in transit and you're not sure what to do and pull up a fic and give it a chance.
Yeah, exactly. Or like me, like I think the last Oktoberfest, I happened to be in Vienna like during that time when a couple of those fics were posted,
Hmm.
and I was just like walking through the streets and reading fic as I went, and that was like such a vibe. Oh my god.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, now we're going to Snapecentric with Dirty Muggle. This is another great fic, All the Dark Places, and read by the author, who's with us now.
Ah,
This one we're going to actually, the beginning of chapter 5, we'll be listening to All the Dark Places.
All the Dark Places by Dirty Muggle. Summary. Hermione always dreamed of working at the Ministry of Magic and making a difference in the magical world. But several years after the war's end, her dream career has become a meaningless slog, and her personal life isn't much better. Severus survived the war and was acquitted of a permanent stay in Azkaban, but that doesn't mean he isn't in prison. Reviled by magical Britain, Severus lives alone, friendless and jobless, except for one small, shady contract. Desperate for something different, Hermione heads impulsively to Nocturne Alley, where a newspaper and a chance encounter with a stranger open her eyes to sex work. It isn't long until she's headed to Nocturne's brothel, the Scarlet Witch, with ideas of undertaking a drastic change. Along the way, she runs into Severus, who's taken to reading in pubs to try and make his life feel less pathetic when he can get out of bed. Angry at the world that's rejected them, they form a close friendship. But when the magical world begins weighing in on Hermione's new career and their friendship leads to feelings, they start to wonder, are people like them allowed happiness and love? Or is the best they can hope for a half-life lived alone in the shadows of the world? From Chapter 5. It was really nice talking to you. For the 100th time in the last week, Hermione Granger's parting words floated through Severus's head. This time it was while in his potions lab, which was set up in the spare room off the conservatory. It had plain walls, a simple but sturdy workbench, and a small cabinet for ingredients, since he didn't need many these days. He brewed only a few times a month for Nocturne Alley's sketchiest apothecary, Perilous Potions, the only apothecary that didn't care who it sourced its goods from, as long as they were potent. Given another option, Severus wouldn't have chosen to work with the shop, but he had exhausted all alternatives. If he didn't have more than 2 decades of savings from Hogwarts stashed away in a vault, he would be in a very bad way. Not that anyone would care. No, they'd say it was his fault, that he deserved what he got, deserved to suffer. Except for maybe Hermione Granger. It was really nice talking to you. Pathetic to even consider she might concern herself with his fate based on a 10-minute conversation. Pathetic that it was the most enjoyable conversation he'd had in more than 5 years. Gripping his knife more tightly, he stilled his mind by imagining submerging it into a cold sea of occlumency. He returned to chopping burdock roots into paper-thin circles and finished the potion without thinking about her again. After the potions were bottled, labeled, and placed in a small crate, Severus apparated to Nocturne to deliver them. It was mid-afternoon, the street busy with shoppers doing errands on a Saturday. He walked in shadow despite the weak blue sky overhead, the tall buildings on either side of the narrow alley a permanent shield from the sun. Severus wasted no time before heading to Perilous Potions. The tiny shop was even gloomier than the street outside, the windows covered with black curtains and floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with glass bottles surrounding the room. "Snape!" barked the proprietress, who lounged on a stool with her feet on the counter, tapping her pointed, black-polished nails against her thigh. Severus placed the box in front of her, and she lazily lifted the cover. "Pity you ain't taken one yet," she commented. "I wouldn't give you the pleasure." "Fate should have given your skills to a more tolerable person." She shifted the till with a sigh, then flashed a wicked smile. "Or at least better looking." Severus settled himself behind his occlumency shields, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing him ruffled while she counted coins with deliberate slowness, each one making a solid click as it contacted the counter. At 30 galleons, she paused to give him a challenging stare. "It's 35 or you will not get your order," Severus snarled, making her smirk. It was the same game with her every time. Knowing he needed the income, she took great pleasure in flaunting her power while he stood stoically and waited for her to decide to free him from her company. As soon as his payment was safely tucked into his coin pouch, he swept from the shop to her cackling laughter. Outside, he huffed out a breath through clenched teeth. He needed a drink. The ghoul and goblin was across the street, but his gaze drifted toward Diagon. Granger might be at the Leaky Cauldron for an afternoon pint with her friends. He took a few steps in that direction before stopping himself and swinging swiftly around. The pub door banged with the force of his grip. Letting the owner of Perilous Potions belittle him was bad enough. He wouldn't sit around at the Leaky like a pathetic fool because of a little kindness that probably meant nothing at all to the witch. It was busy, the room humming with conversations and cutlery scraping on plates. 34 patrons, 4 exits, and practically everyone was doing something they shouldn't, but that was to be expected. "I'll mind my business and you mind yours" had always been the unspoken rule at the Double G. Accordingly, the barman only grunted in response to Severus's order and then passed him his pint, and aside from a few quick glances as he made his way to a table, no one paid him any attention. He found himself letting out a long breath as he took the first sip of lager. Next to him, a pair of gray-haired witches bent over their table, the brims of their pointed hats touching while they chatted, and their smirks deepening the creases in their faces. It was impossible not to eavesdrop on the gossipy hags, who made no attempt to stop him from overhearing their conversation. In the time it took him to eat his fish pie, he learned the owner of Nocturne's pawn shop was having an affair with the fortune-teller, that Cloaks and Daggers had been visited by the Aura office twice in the last month, and the one with the glasses was peddling housewares she'd stolen from a muggle shop before enchanting them. When he finished his pie, he picked up his book and left them to their chatter. He'd read a few pages when in his peripheral vision one straightened and then tapped her friend on the hand. "Ain't that Hermione Granger?" she asked in an excited whisper, pointing towards the bar. Severus's head nearly jerked in the same direction, but he forced it to remain turned towards his book, chest feeling suddenly tight. "What's she doing here? Always thought she had her nose up the minister's ass. Too goody-goody for a place like this," said the second witch. "Nah, having troubles, isn't she? Broke off with that fancy artist fiancé and got transferred to some useless department at the ministry a few months back. She ain't so goody-goody as she seems, I reckon. Maybe she enjoys a little dark wizard cock." The book in Severus's hand creased from the sudden force of his fingers. The witch's cackling in his ears, he risked raising his eyes and immediately located the unmistakable mass of Granger's chestnut curls in front of the bar. She wore a thick cloak that draped over her shoulders to the floor and carried a brown leather shoulder bag, its bulk against her left hip. He couldn't see her face, but could imagine her smile as she ordered from the bartender. A moment later, he no longer needed to imagine it, for she turned around holding her pint. Her eyes were bright as she scanned the room. What was she doing in a place like this? Was she meeting someone? Her head turned, and then suddenly her eyes were on his. His breath stilled when her smile turned tentative and she began weaving through the tables. "It's packed in here," she said when she stood in front of him. "Do you mind if I sit with you?" Unable to force a single word past his larynx, Severus gestured at the open chair across from him, shoved his dirty plate to the side, and then gave the tittering hags next to him a sharp glare. A quick flick of his wand halted any attempt they might make to listen in on his and Granger's conversation. "Thank you," she said, pointing at the forgotten book still in his hand. "What are you reading this time?" He showed her the cover, which had a photo of what looked like a subway or an airport, with a flat escalator and a walkway bathed in reddish-orange light. The title was Warp Space. "I haven't heard of that one." Severus cleared his throat. "It's Muggle. A discussion of psychology's impact on modern architecture and art." Granger blinked at him for a moment, and his lips drew downward in response. What brings you to the Double G? Is that what people call it? She asked with a snort. It used to be common knowledge among Nocturne regulars. I'm not sure if it is anymore. Do you usually go to the Leaky nowadays? No, he replied, unwilling to tell her the reason he couldn't be certain about the state of the pub's nickname was because he hadn't spoken to a Nocturne resident other than a shopkeep since before the last year of the war. I've only been once before, but I expect I'll be coming more often now. Her cheeks suddenly reddened, her eyes falling to her drink. Do you have business here? Curiously, he watched her steady herself with a deep breath. You could say that, she answered with a shy smile. 10 minutes ago I signed a contract with the Scarlet Witch down the street. I'll be working there. Severus quickly schooled his eyebrows, which wanted to shoot up in surprise. A brothel seemed an unlikely place of employment for the upstanding cerebral witch Granger presented to the world. What's the impetus for the career change? He asked, keeping his expression and voice carefully neutral as he studied her. It was plain to see she wouldn't have issues getting clients, especially with flushed cheeks and eyes darting beneath her lashes. She was an attractive woman. He clamped down on his occlumency shields to put those thoughts out of his head. They were not helpful in the least. Granger's leg bounced beneath the table. She took a sip from her pint. I need to leave the ministry, and it's the only thing that appealed to me. That surprised him too. He would have expected her to be an ambitious ladder climber destined for a head position, but the witches at the next table had said she'd been transferred. Had they been right about her having troubles? What happened at the ministry? Nothing is happening at the ministry. You could collapse the entire place into the earth and then set it on fire, and the result would accomplish about as much, she said hotly, eyes flashing with contempt. If you enjoy spending your life being completely useless, I suppose it's an acceptable career. Severus's fingers tightened around his glass. Not everyone has a choice regarding their usefulness, witch, he said in a deadly tone. He took a violent swig of his beer. I didn't mean it like that, she clarified quickly, but his eyes remained narrowed. What I meant is, there's a lot of people at the ministry who don't mind that they do nothing, that think it's fine that their work and their department accomplishes nothing, and when I say nothing, I mean nothing. Her hands turned into fists, flexing against her palms. The look she gave him next was a challenging glare. People like that made work hell. Every job I had there was a fucking joke. She jutted her chin out, arms crossed in front of her on the table, daring him to argue with her. Her irises were the color of dark honey, the sort of eyes that gave away too much of what was behind them. Right now they were full of indignation and righteous anger, but it didn't take leglemency to see defensiveness and worry lingered in their shadows. Anyway, at least this way I'm getting fucked by choice, she said with a bitter little laugh, pushing her hair behind her shoulders. I thought I'd stay at the ministry my whole career, but all I've done there is make myself unhappy. Sometimes you just have to accept that things are what they are and move on, you know? The air in his lungs took on a fuzzy edge. Oh, how well he did know that. I suppose I should wish you congratulations, then, he said, trying to keep his voice smooth, and lifted his glass in acknowledgement. Thank you, she said, and clinked her glass enthusiastically with his. He met soft, appreciative eyes with his shuddered gaze and felt something inside him flicker as if she was a match setting a small candle alight. He looked away. Can I get you another drink? My treat? That was all it took to make the little flame she'd lit flare, pulling all the oxygen from his lungs so his chest felt tight. Scowling, he found himself nodding, then watched her glide to the bar. What was he doing? He should leave. What was the point in staying for another round? It was like she said. Sometimes you had to accept that things were what they were, and Severus had accepted that he wasn't someone anyone wanted to be around. Even before his more recent ostracization from magical society, he'd never been a person people liked. He couldn't recall the last time someone had genuinely wanted to spend time with him. Not because they wanted something from him, nor because they'd been forced into it. No, that wasn't entirely true. He could remember the last time. He just didn't want to. It had been charity, before he'd killed Dumbledore, before he'd sat still and allowed the Dark Lord to... "I hope that look isn't because of having to spend more time with me," came Granger's voice, a pint sliding onto the table, making him jerk in his seat. "I don't see anyone else here bothering me," he snarled at her. Her eyebrows folded, a flash of panic passing over her expression. Halfway into her seat, she froze, hands still around her glass, the liquid inside the same reddish-brown as her hair. The one she'd placed in front of him was the amber of her eyes. In the short time they'd been speaking, she had noticed his preferred drink. "I guess I'll take these pints and find another table, then," she said slowly. It wasn't a question, and yet it was. Her intoxicating eyes searched his face. He swiped the glass of blonde liquid from the table. "You don't even like lager," he said smoothly. "Sit." She was irritatingly charming when she smiled. "Tell me about your book. I finished The Witches of Ramsey, by the way," she said. "Oh, I should ask what you do for work." Severus raised an eyebrow. "Is your intention for me to select a topic from the list, or do you expect me to speak to all three at once?" She huffed an embarrassed laugh, and then gave him a teasing smirk. "I don't doubt your ability to talk about them all at the same time, but go ahead and pick one." He stopped the corner of his mouth from twitching upward like it wanted. "Very well. The Witches of Ramsey, then. What did you think of it?" "You never answered my last question. What do you do for work these days?" Severus wished she had forgotten to ask. He felt a little tipsy from the 6 empty pint glasses they'd managed to drain between them, sticky remnants still on the table. Judging by the glassiness of Hermione's eyes, she was feeling them a little too. "I do a little contract brewing for an apothecary," he answered vaguely. "It makes me glad to hear you still brew," she said. She leaned forward onto her elbows, resting her chin in a cupped hand, and he could practically see her mind turning behind her slightly unfocused eyes. "Did you always dream of working with potions?" His sharp, derisive exhalation made her smile. "Not all of us are afforded dreams, Granger," he said. "There are worse things than potions, however." "Like working at the Ministry," Hermione said with a wry smile. "Like obeying powerful wizards' orders, or being forced to do absolutely nothing at all," he thought. "I take it you never dreamed of working at the Scarlet Witch?" "Merlin, no. I wouldn't have bothered getting 10 newts if I had," Hermione said. "But it's better than any of my other options." Fingers flexed against his glass, which had remained in his hand despite being empty for a good 15 minutes. "That is how I feel about my work as well." They sat in silence for a moment, and Severus felt a long, unfamiliar warmth settle within him. No, not completely unfamiliar. He'd felt like this with Charity sometimes, and Lily a long time ago. It was a silence of a mutual understanding, akin to camaraderie. "I should go," he said, standing abruptly. "Oh, all right. I'm sorry if I kept you late." He shook his head. "It's no matter." Attempting to ignore her, he put on his cloak, calling again on his shields to squash the turmoil of emotions attempting to overcome him. "I wish you the best with your new career," he forced himself to say. "Thank you for celebrating with me," she replied, trying to catch his eye with her all-too-captivating gaze. "Would you ever—" "Good evening, Miss Granger," he cut her off, then spun on his heel and strode for the door. What did it matter if he was rude? These last hours could only ever be a brief respite, and if he'd been a stronger man, he would have rejected her when she first approached. Outside, the sun was setting, the wispy clouds above the narrow strip of nocturne gray, orange, and pink. Severus strode up the cobblestones with quick strides, cloak billowing behind him, eager to avoid running into the witch again when she exited. His head felt strange, his thoughts slurring under waves of emotion that kept trying to surge through his occlumency, which felt unusually weak. There was a reason he normally didn't indulge. Alcohol made people stupid and senseless, and he couldn't afford to be either of those things. He couldn't recall the last time he'd chatted with someone for 2 hours at a pub, unless it was a meeting. It must have been Charity. No, now was not the time to think of her. Cloak still billowing, he turned a corner and a framed rectangle of Diagon Alley appeared ahead. His thoughts spun. Why was he even walking? He needed to go home. It was the absence of something that caught his eye before he could apparate. The large building at the junction of the two alleys, which had always contained an ironmonger, was empty. Brown paper had been inexpertly spello-taped to its large rectangular windows, but had fallen in places to reveal a barren room with a wood floor. The curving stairs to the shop were an arch on the corner, as if it belonged to both Nocturne and Diagon equally. His feet stopped without thinking. He climbed the steps, noting a for sale sign in the window, and peered through the paned front door. With a quick lumos, he pressed his wand to the glass, illuminating the interior. The main floor was large and open, stretching farther into the rear of the building than he expected. To the left, against an exposed red brick wall, was a staircase leading to a second floor, which covered only the back half of the building, the space beyond the railing of a balcony hidden in shadow. In his mind's eye, a gallery appeared in the space before him. 2 mobile walls would run down the center for framed images. Wired hangers in the windows would hold pieces to entice passers-by. He placed sculptures beside the walls and in the back. A small but familiar sense of longing settled in him as he imagined a long desk near the front. It was not the first time he'd imagined such a space, or having a gallery of his own to share the art that meant so much to him. It was preposterous and silly, of course, as were most of his desires. People like him did not get the luxury of fulfilling their dreams. "What are you doing?" came a gruff voice. Severus turned to find an old wizard in a tweed coat and mustard robes frowning at him. Recognition passed over the man's well-worn features, and he stepped back as his wrinkles deepened, highlighted by Severus's wand light. "I would assume it rather obvious," replied Severus, wordlessly darkening his wand. He pointed at the large sign in the window, though it was rather difficult to miss. "We don't want no dark magic shops up this way," barked the man. "Folks like you should learn to stay down the end of Nocturne." Severus sighed, suddenly exhausted with these reactions, the assumptions. Hate he could handle, had always handled, but he wished the world would be silent about it. Let him be, so he didn't have to feel so needy, so desperate that a smile and a few kind words from Hermione Granger made him lose all sense. He came down the stairs with a snarl and his cloak snapping behind him, causing the man to stiffen. "I would never dream of opening a shop that would so obviously embarrass most of the population by being beyond their comprehension and capabilities," he sneered. "But should I ever wish to open a business in the future, I shall of course ask for your permission. To whom shall I address the letter?" The wizard began to splutter, but Severus was already sweeping past. It pleased him when the old man jumped aside. He took 3 more steps and disapparated.
So good. I love when authors read their works. They bring something extra to them.
Well, I guess, yeah, we know the emotions we're trying to get across, so it's easier to put it in our voices.
Yeah. Of course, Snape has a lot of self-loathing here.
He does a lot in this story, both because of the history that we see in canon and then the exile that he's experienced here in this fic.
Yeah.
I do like the kind of moments of vulnerability we get to see.
Yeah, like shortly after this scene here, he basically has a breakdown.
Oh boy.
So he's got like the stoic front over top of a very fragile interior.
I mean, that's very in character for him.
Yeah. They're both outsiders in this story, which I don't know is one of the things that appeals to me. Is they're a couple of nerds.
Yeah, they like don't quite fit in in their own ways, either in society or in struggles with people. And I really like, I don't know, I like stories where Severus bonds with people because of like the similarities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the idea of artist Snape too. I like that.
Oh, there's a lot of art in the story too.
Yeah.
He visits galleries. That's like one of the things he does to kind of keep himself going when he can.
Yeah, that was one of the things I really enjoyed about reading the fic was going to look at the exhibitions and such that you put in there, like Easter eggs.
Yeah, I had so much fun researching them and picking like real shows that had occurred in London at around that time. And so, yeah, actually getting to share all the artists and images.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You address sex work to quite an extent in this story as well.
Yeah, I really wanted, well, I guess I was very cognizant of like not wanting to support common stereotypes or stigmas. And so, yeah, I mean, she experiences obviously troubles because of it, but it's largely a positive thing for Hermione in the story.
That's cool. Because I feel like a lot of people will kind of use it as, well, and not to judge anybody else's writing, but I do feel like a lot of people would use that kind of like trope as like something that she would need to be rescued from, as opposed to, you know, something that she has agency in and she chooses to change her own life.
Yeah, exactly. And it was interesting, like as I was posting it, seeing people's predictions that were largely in that vein, because I do think that is a stereotype, and
Yeah.
it was nice getting to sit there and being like, haha, you have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And the public's reaction to her was something that she had to deal with. That was kind of part of her journey.
It is, yes. Yeah, and like another way that they can kind of connect over shared experiences, because Severus in the story has also experienced a lot of discrimination and stuff from the public because of what he did during the war.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that detail about 34 patrons, 4 exits. I love this. Oh.
Yeah, that is a recurring thing he does. It's like, yeah, whenever he goes to a new place.
Yeah, this is so Spy Severus. I love this. I love this so hard.
Yeah. Good story.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is Snapecentric breaking in. I forgot to mention that All the Dark Places by Dirty Muggle is complete, 136,000 words, 36 chapters. Very good. Highly recommended. Yes, our next story is Snape and Voldemort.
Excited for this one.
Yeah. Oh, Asenora is a really good author. This is Scylla and Charybdis by Asenora, read by Faithless_3105.
Scylla and Charybdis by Asenora, read by Faithless_3105. Summary. Severus Snape is looking for somewhere, anywhere, to belong. He makes the wrong choice. From Chapter 1. Previously. After spending the day travelling by bus, train, and on foot, 16-year-old Severus arrives at Monrepos, the villa where the Dark Lord is staying. After several months of brewing potions and poisons to order, he has finally been summoned for an audience. He is brought to the Dark Lord's apartments. Severus's first thought, hastily dismissed lest it cause him to meet the wrong end of a wand, was that the rooms must have belonged to a woman. They were what his father would have called fruity, devoid of the brown velour and toneless wood which had made up the front room at Spinner's End. Instead, the air was made glittery by the refraction of sunlight off jewel-toned damasks and coloured leather and a huge amount of gold. The walls were filled by floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Severus's heart sung at just how giddily illegal many of the tomes were, and the other flat surfaces, the desk, the spindly end tables by the sofa, the window-sill, were all crammed full of trinkets. Several of these, gem-studded and obviously ancient, trembled with dark magic, and Severus felt himself drawn towards them, like a fisherman into a siren's lure. But others were more mundane. The Dark Lord seemed to collect shells and sea-glass, and to have a fondness for paperweights. None of the wanted posters which peppered Diagon Alley had ever seen fit to mention such a thing. He would spend hours arguing with Dumbledore in the second war, pointing out that their side's failure to humanize Lord Voldemort, to turn him into an ordinary man with plebeian tastes and a Cockney accent he could never entirely disguise, rather than the unstoppable force of pure magic the papers reported him as being, was an error, pointing out that Dumbledore's jealous guarding of the Dark Lord's real name and background, far less of a secret among the older generation of Death Eaters than the Order believed, was exactly what he wanted. But Dumbledore would never be persuaded. Tom Riddle's more intimate secrets had gone with Severus to the grave. The Dark Lord was standing before the dormer window, facing away from them, the backlighting of the one winter afternoon making the air around him seem shimmery and thick. Or perhaps that was simply the power of the magic which emanated from him in even, undulating waves. He was very tall, taller even, Severus thought, than Black, before he cursed himself for thinking of someone so colossally insignificant in the Dark Lord's presence, and very, very thin. He held himself with the spare serpentine grace of a ballet dancer, slender hands clasped elegantly behind his back. He was very expensively dressed, in magnificent robes of midnight blue velvet, glittering with gold at the collar and cuffs. The wanted posters always showed him in the austere black of combat. "Severus Snape, my lord." The Dark Lord waved languidly in acknowledgment. "You may leave us, Romulus." "Very good, my lord." It did not escape Severus's attention that Lestrange, one of the purest, richest, and most powerful men in Britain, left the room bowing and scraping like a house elf. He imagined what it would be like to have such power over Avery, or Mulciber, or Rossier, whose families' lineages, while they seemed to have done little to make them smart or attractive, gave them a status in the world which was forever out of reach for him. The idea was thrilling. "Sit," said the Dark Lord in a cold, beautiful voice, gesturing to a chair by the desk. Severus arranged himself upon it, suddenly uncomfortably aware of his gangliness of limb and awkwardness of demeanour, a favourite topic of fun in both the Slytherin and Gryffindor common rooms. Pure-blood children all had lessons in elocution and deportment the moment they could toddle. The Dark Lord's ranks were swelled with elegant men. That there could be a place in his world for someone like Severus seemed nonsensical. The Dark Lord drifted into the opposite chair. The wanted posters are very unflattering, thought Severus. That wasn't strictly true, of course. The wanted posters managed to capture the innate wrongness of Lord Voldemort's features very well. His death-mask face, skin stretched taut like marble over the sharp bone of his skull, his bloodless pallor, his sleek jet-black hair, the colour in sharp contrast to the sickly waxiness of his skin, the tight reptilian corners to his mouth. But they could not capture the lingering traces of what Severus knew, as only someone denied it can, must have once been extraordinary beauty, the plump femininity of his lips, the sharp chin and high cheekbones, the scattering of freckles on his sneering nose. His eyes, though a glistening inhuman scarlet, were framed with lashes so long that they touched his cheek when he blinked. That he had a weakness for slender, dark-haired men with arrogant features was something Severus had spent much of his adolescence trying to deny. He was already poor and ugly. Adding being a poof into the mix would be disastrous. He had chosen to focus instead on fantasies of nubile female bodies and red hair, rather than Black leaning back on his chair during potions, or Potter mounting his broom, or the occasional glimpse of Regulus, naked and wet, in the showers. The desire he felt on those wicked occasions was too overwhelming for him to cope with, forcing him to retreat to the shadowiest places he could find to wank in furtive desperation, praying that the marauders didn't find and torture him while he was already overcome with need for their darkness and danger. But in that moment they were nothing to him. Lord Voldemort was darker and more dangerous by far than Potter and his ilk. It was the otherworldliness to him, Severus decided, which elevated him above the caste of miserable schoolboys. He was a creature of power, of magic, of fulgent combustible evil, and Severus was enthralled. The Dark Lord smiled as though he had read his mind. He had very long canines, like snakes' fangs. "So," he said softly, regarding Severus over the tented tips of his fingers. Severus wondered if he was aware it was a mannerism he shared with Dumbledore. "We are introduced at last." "It's an honour," said Severus, breath hitching in his throat. "My lord," he added, remembering the whispered briefing on etiquette Malfoy had given him as they scurried up the driveway. The Dark Lord's eyes glimmered as they ran across his face. "I'm sure it is." He stared at Severus for a while, head tilted to one side like a particularly sinister bird, as Severus wondered if he was expected to say something, or if the Dark Lord wouldn't allow conversation until he had permitted you to speak. The intensity of his gaze made blood pound in Severus's temples. "The potions you brewed for me were most useful," he said eventually. "The addition of hyssop to the Verita serum was inspired and very effective." Slughorn hadn't cared when Severus had first floated the idea that hyssop could improve the potency of the potion. "Thank you, my lord." "Also welcome was your discretion over the plans for their use." "I was happy to do it." The Dark Lord smiled again, baring his teeth. "Indeed." He rose from his chair and walked around the desk until he was standing over Severus, who had to tilt his head back so sharply to keep looking at him in the face that his neck hurt. "But the question that preoccupies me, Severus Snape, is why you were happy to do that. After all, potions' ingredients are expensive, and you do not strike me as a boy with money to burn. Perhaps you will try to convince me that your motives were altruistic, but you would be lying, wouldn't you?" "I'm sorry?" "Tell me why you have come here today, Severus." "I was asked to." The Dark Lord's immaculate eyebrows raised. "I mean," stammered Severus, suddenly aware that he should have given a more fawning response. He was silenced by the grip of thin fingers under his tilted chin. "Do not change your answer." "But I prefer plain speaking, Severus, to meaningless flattery." He would always believe this of himself, even when the claim became quite impossible to justify. "Yes, my lord." "So, you have come here today because I summoned you, but that is not, I think, the only reason. For Lucius tells me that you are in accord with the charges I wish to see instituted in our glorious ministry." "Yes, my lord." "But you are not a pureblood, so I ask myself why you would wish to see the old families exalted when the purebloods and their self-righteous enablers are swept from power. And I conclude, Severus, that this does not really matter to you." "I promise you, my lord, it does." "Really? For it does not matter to Lord Voldemort. What concern is it of mine if the minister is a Malfoy or a mudblood, when he keeps us shackled behind the statute of secrecy, unable to beautify the world with the power of our magic? I am not some forelock-tugging sycophant, Severus, happy to continue to wallow in the ministry swamp as long as someone with the right name sits behind the desk. I intend to tear down our world and make it anew." "Yes, my lord." "Does this shock you?" A little, my lord." The Prophet reported that the Dark Lord's aims were class war. The more politically engaged mudbloods said they were sectarian. Lucius thought that he was a champion of those of the right blood and token others. Nobody had ever suggested that his goal was magic, pure and simple. "You are a half-blood, Lucius tells me," the Dark Lord said, pushing a greasy strand of hair behind Severus's ear. "Yes," said Severus, unable to keep a note of bitterness from his voice. "My father is a muggle. He worked in a mill." "And you were raised in some detestable muggle hovel?" "Yes." "It will be difficult, will it not, for you to get yourself a job which benefits your talents when you are struggling against these deficiencies? Albus Dumbledore and his ilk tell themselves otherwise, but the truth is plain. You can amount to nothing, can you, Severus, if the rot in our society is not stopped? For many of the greatest potion makers take as their apprentices only those with ancient names. The Ministry of Magic prefers to staff its halls learned research with those whose blood is pure. Perhaps you might end up manning a cauldron in the basement of St. Mungo's. Perhaps you might end up a shop boy, grovelling in some apothecary somewhere, while your peers become all the richer. It is a living, but it is no life, is it, Severus? No. But in a world which rewards magic, which congratulates those who transcend the bonds of their muggle pasts and become powerful beyond their wildest dreams, instead of capitulating to the belief that they are just like us, you would be great. There are purebloods who can barely light a cauldron, and you come to me with work which is exquisite. He said this last in a hiss which made Severus's groin throb. Yes, I confess that I am impressed by you, and I suspect that dear old Sluggy is not. Professor Slughorn. He prefers a pretty face, Severus, to a sound mind. It will, I am sure, one day be his downfall. The rumours were that the Dark Lord was a European insurgent. The ministry claimed he had originated in Albania. The idea that he could have gone to Hogwarts was treated as faintly ridiculous, even by people like Avery and Mulciber. Severus felt an odd surge of power at being entrusted with the evidence that he had. Thank you, my lord. I need potions, he said, suddenly businesslike. Esoteric ones, frequently illegal ones, and tired of paying Nocturne Alley prices for substandard work. I can brew them for you, my lord, and I expect you shall, but I find myself concluding that this shall not be all you provide. My lord? The Dark Lord chuckled, although the sound was not pleasant. I expected little, Severus. Perhaps I would have you work to contract, but I did not expect to take more interest in you than that. But I find myself intrigued. One might term you a diamond in the rough. You have talent, you have potential to be exceptional, but you require training in potions and in, well, other things. His eyes flickered, with evident disgust, over Severus's muggle clothing. How lucky, then, that you have caught the eye of Lord Voldemort. He shall apprentice you to a wizard of extraordinary skill. You will begin at once. Thank you, my lord. The Dark Lord drifted back to his chair opposite Severus. I am an exceedingly generous man, Severus. Should your performance meet my standards, you will not fail to benefit from our acquaintance. Indeed, you shall be given whatever you desire, or, he smiled nastily, whomever, as the case may be. Thank you. Lord Voldemort rewards his servants, Severus. I expect that not to be forgotten. He should have run. Who will I be studying with, my lord? A predatory flash passed across ruby eyes. Me.
Oh my god, I love her Voldemort voice so much. I love it.
Yeah.
I like the characterization of Voldemort a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it sounded so realistic. It's like meant to be a sort of like canon compliant-ish story, I think. Like, yeah, it sounded so realistic. I don't know how else to say it. It's like it sounded as if it was something that could have really happened, and the brackets with the hindsight is like, oh my god. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They pack so much into these stories. This is basically told from the point of view of Severus looking over his life while he's dying.
Oh.
Ouch.
Yeah. In the brackets is kind of his thoughts about the way things happened.
Right.
Yeah, they're really interesting though. I love the note, I think it was fairly early on, about the Ministry's failure to humanize Voldemort.
Right.
Like being their downfall and stuff like that. It gives you some like really interesting, like extra insight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would call it a love story myself. This was just a tiny little fragment of it, really.
He's definitely seducing Snape.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that you can't quite, like, it seems very true that you, like, can't quite tell what Voldemort's, like, intentions are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whether, like, how manipulative and how truthful he's being.
Yes, exactly. Considering, at the same time, I think, like, Severus also talks about how the press reports Voldemort's gold as being based more or less in direct opposition to what he's telling Severus, and how this just sounds so much like him. It's like, wow.
Yeah, and I, like, that's why I wonder how much, and maybe we'll find out later in the story how much Voldemort saying that is, like, to appeal to Severus and what
Yes.
is important to him, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, I also love the allusions to Severus, like, struggling with his own homosexuality and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also like the kind of aesthetic that the writer builds for Voldemort through his appearance, through his dress, through his interior design. I like all that stuff.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so many little details. And, he's talking about his attraction to the Dark Lord, but then going back to, like you said, his own homosexuality, that he's drawn to dark-haired men. I can't remember how it was said, but
Dark and dangerous, I know, was one thing that
Yes.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
That's
like,
it.
pretty. Yeah.
So, yeah, another beautiful story.
I've not read that pairing before, and I think I haven't really come across it very often, so I think I might have to check it out. The reader, Faithless, I recognize the name. I realized we're following each other on Blue Sky.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, very cool.
Very good reader.
Because I think that they read and write Snarey as well.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah, this one is a work in progress. It's 111,000 words so far.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, so good. It's really worth following.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I follow the author on Tumblr as well, and they've got, yeah, a lot of interesting insights into his character and stuff generally.
Trying to think. She also has a snack, work in progress called The War of the Roses. Another good story.
I do love Snack.
Good author to follow.
Sounds like it.
And then now we go into the not safe for work territory with a little snack.
That's a good segue.
Yeah. This is One More Kiss, Dear by Threadbear, read by Mango Tart Reads.
One More Kiss, Dear by Threadbear, read by Mango Tart Reads. Summary: Sirius desperately wants to punch Snape right in his stupid mouth. Just once. He's pretty sure it will make him feel better. Equal parts sex and angst. Enjoy! Chapter 1. We skipped the light fandango. Turned the cartwheels across the floor. I was feeling kinda seasick, but the crowd called out for more. Procol Harum, a whiter shade of pale. When Sirius gets into a screaming match with Snape in his kitchen, he thinks he could punch him. He thinks about it, imagines his fist colliding with his face, imagines the noise it would make, how good it would feel. The muscles in his arm twitch, scream to do it, and he balls his hand into a hard fist. When Arthur and the rest walk in, he's a bit hard from the thought of it. Since Azkaban, his impulses has been all screwed up like this. Like he had some important wires crossed somewhere. Everything, even little things, push him to breaking point. He's on a razor's edge most of the time. He senses something similar in Snape, which is probably why they fight so easily. Snape's nostrils flare and he's breathing hard. Sirius does not hit him that night, but he wants to. Oh, how he wants to. The next time they fight, Sirius is upstairs repainting one of the spare rooms. It's late. Too late for painting. It probably makes him seem a bit unhinged, but he does it to keep himself busy, and it's preferable to drink himself into a stupor every night. Because as much as he's grateful to be out of Azkaban, and yes, he is, he can't help feeling he'd simply traded one jail cell for a bigger, more civilized one. Sirius has paint in his hair and a cigarette dangling between his lips, and Snape has on Death Eater robes. Sirius turns down his music huffily. Something about Snape risking his life while Sirius was stuck at number 12, listening to Procol Harum and a painting skirting board badly got under his skin. So he simply picks up from where they left off earlier. He almost can't help the things that come out of his mouth. It's too easy to say them. "I'm on to you," he tells him. "You might have Dumbledore fooled, but I know what you're really like, Snivelos." Snape tells him he's a worthless, good-for-nothing coward in that slick, measured drawl of his, and it shouldn't upset him as much as it does. His free hand rolls itself into a fist again, and his nails cut moons into his palm. Then Snape does something rather odd. He drips blood on his carpet. "What are you doing here?" he suddenly thinks to ask. "Dittany," Snape replies in a strained voice. "For fuck's sake," he says, dropping his paintbrush and letting out a breath. "You couldn't have mentioned that earlier?" He leaves to find the dittany and cloths and bandages. When he gets back, Snape is sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall with his robes shrugged off and his shirt unbuttoned to his navel. Sirius gingerly pushes his shirt down his shoulder and sets to work patching up a sizable wound to Snape's left bicep. Snape had quite nice arms, as it turned out, and lovely skin, which is an odd thought for anyone to have, but more so when you're Sirius Black, and the person in question is Snivelos Snape, Death Eater, and known asshole, and, well, it must be observed, male. Probably what happens when someone hadn't had a proper shag in over a decade. Sirius decides. Screws with your brain like that. "You going to tell me how you got this?" he asks him. "No," Snape says. "Suit yourself," he says and mumbles a few mending charms that he remembers. "It's deep, is all." Snape shrugs with his eyebrows. When he's done, he winds a bandage around his arm a couple of times and ties it off with a knot. "You're good at that," Snape observes. "Yeah, well," Sirius says, pressing his back to the wall next to Snape. "No healer in Azkaban prison." "No, there wouldn't be, I suppose." Snape wriggles himself back into his clothes, and Sirius tries not to watch. But he does. It's skin, and it's muscle, and it's hair, and it's close enough to touch. It had been a very long time since he'd seen so much of it up close. That wasn't his own, at least. "It's my birthday today," Snape says towards his feet, as if he were only just realizing it himself. Sirius raises an eyebrow. He doesn't need to ask how old he was. They were the same age. 33, if you could believe that. He still couldn't. "Good birthday, then?" he asks. He glances over and Snape looks at him and his lip quivers. "Yeah, thank you." Snape deadpans, and then, if the night could get any stranger, both of them erupt into giggles. It's not even all that funny, but Sirius can't seem to stop. After a minute, he gets himself together and wipes at his eyes. "Jesus," he says, still laughing. "Well, thanks, I needed that. I'm glad my life is such a source of entertainment to you." "It is, yeah, ta." Snape gets up, but Sirius can still see the edges of a smile tugging at his lips. "Thanks," Snape says, nodding at the pile of bloody rags. Sirius makes a saluting motion with his hand, then he lights a smoke as he watches him leave. He has the oddest feeling, like he needed to hex someone. Go for a run, maybe. "It's nothing." "Right." Harry looks up at him. "It's fine," he mumbles. "Like hell. He shouldn't say that shit to you." "Sirius, please don't say anything." Sirius. After he pulls his head out of the fireplace, he paces the floor, feeling his blood boil. He'd be stuffed if he was going to let Snape traumatize his bloody godson. Not Snivelus, not that little runt. He'd soon sort him out. He has a dream he's telling Snape off, while Snape unbuttons his shirt slowly, then pushes it off his shoulders. "Stop distracting me," Sirius says. He gets his chance the following week when Snape turns up early to the meeting. "What do you want?" Sirius barks. Normally Snape would show up, robes swirling, mere moments before the meeting started, and would leave just as quickly after. Sirius had been planning on using the last half hour beforehand to drink a beer in the shower and maybe indulge in a little spot of self-abuse if the need should arise. Giving Snape a dressing down sounding infinitely more interesting anyway. He watches Snape plaster on a sneer. "I'd get your arm out of my face if you don't want to lose it," he says. "Not till you tell me what you're doing here. This is headquarters, is it not? I was under the impression it was to be used as such." Snape brushes past him and heads for the stairs. "It's still my fucking house, Snape," he calls after. He chases him up the stairs and grabs his arm on the landing. Snape looks down at his hand on his arm, and suddenly Sirius feels uncomfortable and removes it. "I need the library," Snape says. So, unless you want me to inform Dumbledore that, not content with being merely useless, you have now progressed to actively impeding the war effort, I suggest you fuck off, etc. Sirius thinks about punching him again. Smug prick. In the library, he watches him run a long finger down shelves. It was obscene the way he did that, really. He wants to tell him to stop. "There's no need to monitor me." "Oh, I think there is." "Suit yourself." "Are you finished?" he asks a few minutes later. Does it look like I'm finished? Are you? No. He only manages to wait another handful of minutes before he blurts out, Look, Snape, I know none of us are happy about these fucking lessons, but if I hear again you treating Harry badly, it will be the last thing you do. You can trust me on that. There, he thinks. I behaved. I hope you're happy, Remus. Harry. He's been warned, though. Next time, I won't be so civilized. Snape stops, then blinks once, then twice. He closes his book slowly and puts it back on the shelf. It would do you well not to talk about things you know nothing about. Oh, you'd be surprised about what I know. If I hear you're mistreating him, Snape scoffs loudly. Please. Potter interprets any behavior towards himself that's not phoning flattery as mistreatment. Sirius clenches his fists by his sides. I would shut your mouth, Snape. Snape pulls out his wand. Or what? Sirius laughs derisively at it. Typical Snivellus, hiding behind his wand. What's wrong, Snively? You scared? How dare you threaten me? He says, but rises the thing higher, adding, You're nothing, Black. You're no one. Just some filth who spent his life rotting away in a jail cell. Sirius gets that feeling again, like he'd love to feel his knuckles against Snape's teeth. I think you are scared. I think you're still a scared little blubbering chicken shit. What's the matter, Snively? The girl you have a creepy obsession with not like you back. Then Sirius's head snaps hard to the right as Snape's fist chops out quick and sharp into his cheek. He hadn't even seen it coming. Ha! Is the first thing he thinks. He fucking started it. Then the pain hits, and it radiates along his jaw, making his eyes water. He spits on the floor, then grins through bloody teeth. You've learned to fight then, you pussy. There's a white stab of excitement that runs through him. Blood pounds in his ears, and his breathing is heavy. He has time to notice the power that courses through his body, feels the strength in his arms, in his shoulders, feels the size difference between them. He's going to fucking destroy him. He pulls back his arm and swings, and his knuckles find perches on teeth. It feels as good as he thought it would. Better. And then Snape is bleeding, blood dripping from his lip down to his chin. Drip, drip, drip onto the floor. For exactly 1 moment he feels big, powerful, and all his blood surges down to his dick. He lets out an exhale and breathes hard. Now that he's done it, he's not sure what to do next. He looks down at his hand and finds the knuckles grazed and bleeding. Snape's face is blank. He looks closer to tired than he does angry. Sirius takes in the amount of blood, Snape's small frame, and for a second feels a bit bad. Look, he says, and because he had not been expecting it, when Snape's fist comes at him again, he dodges it badly and it connects with his ear. It stings, a lot more than he thought it would, and he's pissed off that he had almost felt sorry for him, so he throws Snape by the scruff of his robes hard against the bookshelves and pins him as he spits and snarls. This, he thinks, this is the real Snape, this feral little shit, this ugly little half-blood nightmare. This is what I wanted. And then Snape jolts, and reflexively Sirius bears down, forearms leaping to throat, body flush, pressing to hard flesh. Oh fuck! Oh Jesus, was that? Snape's eyes go wide. Get the fuck off me, he chokes. He pushes Sirius aside and makes for the floor. Sirius stops thinking, just acts. No, he calls after, grabs him by the shoulder, spins him around. Jesus Christ, don't. Snape looks panicked, goes to bold. Sirius slams him into the opposite wall. I said don't. Snape's eyes are wild, and his chest heaves. Sirius frames him with his body and pins his hands to the wall. They pant, hot breath mingling. Bodies pushed up hard against one another, and Sirius realizes he has never been so turned on in his life. Well, that he can remember. He could let go now, of course, walk away, and they could both pretend nothing happened. But Snape smells so good. Why does he smell like that? It's not cologne or potion ingredients or anything like that. It's just a thick, clean, musky sweat, and Sirius falls onto his neck and breathes him in big, greedy gulps, and pushes himself against him. It's Snape's fault anyway, he thinks, making him feel like this. This was going to be an absolute fucking mess, but right now he can't remember why. He can feel Snape pushing back and his pulse thudding under his mouth. His hard little prick jutting into him and his breath coming out in pants. Sirius's mouth follows the line of his throat and sucks the blood from Snape's chin. Sick, Snape says in a breathy voice that trembles and cracks. Hush, Sirius says and tightens his grip on his wrists. He can feel the small bones grind beneath his fingers. Sirius pulls his head back and grins tauntingly. Snape's forehead connects with the bridge of his nose. Fuck, little bitch, Sirius tries to say, but it comes out garbled because his nose is now pissing blood, a river of blood, and he thinks maybe it's broken. He brings his hand up reflexively to dab at it, and despite the fact that his nose is clearly fucked, Snape takes the opportunity to jump at him. Sirius topples and lands on his back and has just enough time to remember what a wily little cunt Snape was and how he should never let his guard down before Snape lands on top and Sirius gasps and sucks in air and chokes on nostrils full of blood. While Sirius is distracted, Snape pins his arms above his head. Sirius strains up. Please, he begs, for what he's not sure. Something, anything, pathetic. Snape, put your mouth on me, please. Disgusting, Snape says. Sirius hooks a leg around and rolls them over, using his weight to his advantage. Snape's bony hips as well as his prick poke into him. Snape garbles, and Sirius forces his mouth over his and pushes his tongue between his lips. Eventually, he gasps and his mouth opens, and a rough, wet tongue slides against his own. Sirius presses a forearm to his throat. Then, with his free hand, he unbuttons first Snape's fly, then his own. With a shaking, inexpert hand, he releases them both, and they both gasp into each other's mouths at the contact. God, it had been so long. The hardness and the heat and the catch of skin. You couldn't recreate this with your hand as much as he'd tried in the months since his escape. Alone in his miserable, dark and dank room. He mouths at Snivelly's cheek and tastes his blood, and his lips catch on skin rough as sandpaper. His nose hasn't stopped bleeding yet, but it hardly seems to matter. "Tell me to stop, and I will," he whispers harshly. He tells himself he can, if he has to. Snape pants in his ear and says nothing, but he grabs Sirius's hand and shoves it inelegantly into his crotch. Sirius groans. He wraps his hand around both of them and pulls roughly. "That's it," he breathes. "God, that's it, Snape. Wanna fuck you so hard you black out." He hears a whimper. "Do you want that?" He continues. "Want me to fuck that tight little virgin cunt of yours? You been saving it for me, Saving that prissy little hole for me? Do you need a real man to fuck you, Snape, There is only more indiscriminate whimpering. Speak up, do you? Yes. That's right. He licks and bites at Snape's mouth, feeling like he might come any second. He thinks about fucking Snape, and he feels dizzy. Thinks about when he's having a wank and he wants to come. All he needs to think about is... He hooks one of Snape's legs with his hand and pushes it back. That's almost right. Almost as good. He licks onto Snape's belly, wraps himself into his stiff, leaking cock, mutters, "That's it, Snape. Let me fuck you." Snape makes a strangled noise, and his face crumbles. He throws his head back, then, with an anguished cry, he comes. And, God damn, Snape was far from a handsome man, but sweet fuck. When he came, his features pulled in an exquisite pain. It was one of the sexiest thing Sirius had seen, maybe ever, and he shoves himself into the delicious wet heat of him once, twice, then again, and comes on him hard with a wild animal grunt, sucking in noisy breaths with his nose buried in Snape's neck. "Shit," he says when he can feel his legs again. Jesus Christ, what the hell was that? What if someone had walked in? He could still taste Snape's blood in his mouth, mingling with his own, his softening dick, gluey with both their cum, was nestled softly against Snape's like a small, wounded animal. "Get off." "Right." They fix clothing, and Sirius wipes his mouth with his sleeve, then remembers about his nose. "It is fucking broken, you psychopath." "How would I know?" "Just look! I'm not coming anywhere near you. Don't be such a baby. He taps at it and winces. It feels broken, is it? Snape touches it gingerly. Probably. Can you fix it? Snape gets out his wand. I'm sure it goes without saying. If you mention this to anyone, I will not hesitate in slipping something vile and unpleasant and wholly permanent in your tea. Are you kidding? I'm about to go obliviate myself. I'd be more than happy to do it for you. Just the nose, fuckface, and quickly. I think I hear the door. Snape does the nose, but there's not enough time for anything else, and when they arrive downstairs, bruised and bloody, it's to stares and whimpers. Remus is worried for him, thinks he's not coping. It's fine, he tells him. It was nothing.
This is one of my favorite things about Snack, is just them getting into these horrible fights and it turning into sex.
So toxic and good.
Yes.
Facts. But also, like, those tiny, like, sort of caring moments, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like, what kind of dynamic is that? Oh my god.
Yeah, the tension between not being able to let go of the past and then dealing with the present. Like, yeah, that continuance of like calling him Snivellus and calling him weak and stuff.
Yeah.
Which feels like an echo, but it's obviously like not what he's feeling. Sirius is feeling in the moment.
Yeah. They're both in denial about it, of course.
Exactly.
Unreliable narrator here. Oh, unrelatable Renaya. Yeah, unreliable narrator here. Like there's this moment of clarity where he thinks, oh shit, Azkaban must have messed with my brain. But he goes right back with being brain messy and not trying to do anything about it. Which feels very serious to me, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of denial that it's his own feelings. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just like Azkaban messed with me. So then he doesn't have to like
Yeah, exactly.
be responsible for the fact that he's actually attracted to Snape.
Mhm. There's 2 more chapters to this story, and of course they have more fighting and
Of course.
the other thing. It's not necessarily fucking, it's the other stuff. Threadbear does a lot of Snack. They also have a work in progress. It's a Muggle band AU called Love Will Tear Us Apart Again. There's Snack, and there's also original male characters with both of them, a past relationship with Snape and Malfoy.
Oh.
A little snoocious there. Very interesting. All right, well, that is everybody.
A lot of good fics today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff was just so incredibly insightful. I don't know, like, oh, I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good Snape characterizations.
Exactly.
I don't know, going from his solitude to taking care of little Harry and on to other pairings, which is really good.
He's really multifaceted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like, I don't know. For me, anyway, one of the funnest parts about writing him is just how complex his character is and how much you have to pull from to make it mesh with whatever story you want to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, yes, happy 66th birthday to our Severus Snape. Thanks, everybody, for joining me today. Dirty Muggle.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. And SerenaEW.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And also Masao.
Thanks for having me as always. It's been a lot of fun, as usual.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this cavalcade of Snape. So goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So that's it. And it was just about 3 hours, so I'm glad it wasn't longer.
A good long episode
Yeah.
for Snape's birthday.
That felt like it went by quickly, though.
It did. It was getting into the stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining me, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It
You
was
bet.
lovely and flattering. Thank you.
Well, I love having authors read their own things and also joining us. You just have so many insights. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, I think most authors do probably like any opportunity to talk about what they were thinking when they were writing.
Well,
it's just me in my head.
Yeah.
Well, and it is interesting to hear like how, even just like the cadence of the dialogue, because, when you're reading a fic, you don't necessarily know like how exactly the author kind of imagined the character saying something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, although I don't know that I do a perfect Snape, as in my head. I don't have quite the tone of voice, but I tried.
Oh, yeah, the voices are one thing. I think just the intonation and such.
Yeah.
Is really good.
Agreed.
All right. Well, again, thank you, everybody, for joining me. And I'll have this out on the 9th.
Yay!
Exciting.
All right.
Hey.
All right. And thank you, Masao, for staying up late.
Oh yeah,
no
thank you for accommodating my my schedule and my
problem.
dislike of mornings.
Yeah. All right. So
well, I guess I'm going to bed then.
All right. Sweet dreams.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And that's the show. I hope you enjoyed the Fix and Chat. Thanks to authors Truliarose, CypressWand, StarcrossedGirl, Dirty Muggle, Asenora, and Threadbear for permission to feature their fics. Thanks to Dirty Muggle, Truliarose, Snapecentric, SerenaEW, Faithless_3105, and Mango Tart Reads for reading. Also, thanks to Dirty Muggle, masao, and SerenaEW for joining the listening party. Check out our additional reading page at snapechatpodcast.com for links to all these wonderful stories and more. And here we must say goodbye. We wish we didn't have to, but it hasn't escaped our notice that life isn't fair. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Tumblr, X, and Blue Sky, or leave a comment on Spotify or at our website, snapechatpodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. Many thanks to Nyx for continued work on our website. Music by Bruno Magic. Be sure to check out Care of Magical Shippers podcast and alwayssnape.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, stay snarky.